All right, it looks like we are live. This is my very first time going live on YouTube. I've tried to go live on TikTok a couple times a week. Bear with me while I some of these settings a little bit. Oh, I don't need that echo. That's a close-up. I didn't mean to give you all a close-up. All right, greetings and salutations. Welcome to lighting looks kind of funky in here, but we're going to go ahead and keep it that way. Welcome to the Week 16 recap. This is a live edition, kind of just making up for a lack of great production value. I'm not going to lie. I've been kind of lazy when it comes to my content creation. I haven't even gotten started on green lights, red flags for this week. And I know that you guys have games, Packers, Eagles, Commanders, Packers, Bears, Commanders, Eagles today. So I'm going to try to crank out this preview video, get it up on my channel so that people who aren't live can watch it. If you comment and I'm not responding as much as I usually would, like on TikTok, it's because I am keeping this live. I'm keeping it on my page rather for people who aren't here live. And so I still want it to be similar to my regular preview videos. So don't get in your feelings if I'm not responding to your comments how I normally would. It's because I'm trying to treat this kind of like a regular preview show, if you will. But I do see Caesar. What's good, bro? Hope you're doing well. Really quick before we get into it, you know what I need you to do? Whoopsie. My keyboard is connected to the wrong thing. Subscribe to the channel, like the live, like the video if you would not mind. And really quick, we're going to get right into this. I guess I'm not as prepared as I should have been. I did do some work prepping this stuff, but I'm not as organized as I thought I would be. So hang with me for just a sec as I pull up some of the notes I took for this yesterday. Here we go. All right, we're going to go through the regular. We're going to go a little we're going to jerry rig this a little bit. Okay, highest projected scoring environments. These are the games I like to target for my fantasy matchups. Lions at the Rams, 54.5 points. It's the highest projected game on the slate. That's week 15. See, this is how you know I'm not locked in right now. This is how you know that I'm a little slow. All right, here we go. Lions Steelers. That's the real highest projected scoring game of the slate. 51.5 points there. Cowboys Chargers second, 49.5. Bengals Dolphins 47.5. Ravens Patriots, Falcons Cardinals. They're also at 47.5. The lowest projected scoring environments. These are the games that Vegas thinks will be the lowest scoring. Texans Raiders at 37.5. Chiefs Titans gets that same number. And then the Saints Jets 40.5. Bills Browns 41.5. Vikings Giants 43.5. My favorite part of these like preview information that I put together is the most heavily utilized players at each position. Fantasy Life is a really cool metric called utilization score, and it just kind of combines pass, like target share, snap count, routes run, 2-minute, like just a whole bunch of different usage metrics, and then combines it into a utilization score. So since week 10, here are the most heavily utilized players at each position. At running back, Christian McCaffrey, this is 1 through 12. Christian McCaffrey, Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, JT, Chase Brown, top 5. Devon Achane 6, Ashton Genty 7, just not giving you the performances there. James Cook 8, Travion Henderson 9, Saquon 10, Rico 11, and Travis Etienne 12. Over to receiver, Michael Wilson is the number 1 most utilized receiver the past 5 weeks. Then Jackson Smith and Jigba, Drake London, who's playing this week. I'm not sure if that matters for you. It definitely matters for me in a league, my favorite home dynasty league. Super excited to have him back in my lineup. Mike Evans, number 4, which is just one game, but on a per game basis, like he was used like very, very heavy utilization there. I think he's got to be a must start, right? Puka Nacua 5, Jamar Chase 6, CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins. I wrote Antonio Brown. Surely I meant AJ Brown. Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then Wan'Dale Robinson at tight end. No one needs me to tell you who the number one tight end is in utilization. It's Trey McBride. But after that, George Kittle, Kyle Pitts, Brock Bowers, Zach Ertz, done for the season, maybe done for his career. Great career from Zach Ertz. Travis Kelce, Harold Fannin, Dalton Schultz, Theo Johnson, Darren Waller, Tyler Warren, and Hunter Henry. Okay. One last little thing we'll do here before we get into the week-by-week matchups. Difficult fantasy defenses. The past 4 weeks, these are the 5 defenses that have been the stingiest against quarterbacks. The number 1 defense against quarterbacks the past 4 weeks is the Minnesota Vikings, then the Seattle Seahawks, the LA Chargers, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the San Francisco 49ers. For running backs, toughest defenses against them the past 4 weeks. The Chargers, the Falcons, the Dolphins, the Bears, and the Broncos. For receivers, the number 1 defense all year, but past 4 weeks as well, against receivers is the Cincinnati Bengals, surprisingly. San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks, Philadelphia Eagles, and the LA Chargers, who have shown up on Chargers are top 5 against quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers the past 4 weeks. Not sure if that has more to do with their defense or the teams they've been playing. Against tight ends, the number 1 defense the past 4 weeks is the Minnesota Vikings, followed by the Rams, Saints, Packers, and the Giants. Now on to favorable fantasy defenses. These are defenses we want to have our players play against. Although I will say, I think it can be really easy to get too caught up in the matchup, and you start overthinking like an easy lineup decision. You go, oh, well, this guy does have a good matchup. I kind of messed up last week doing that with Chris Godwin. Now, he bailed me out because he got the touchdown in the 2-point conversion. We call that an octopus over here and everywhere else. I obviously did not come up with that. He bailed you out with those 8 points, but he's the third option he's just a third option, like on a team whose quarterback has been struggling to move the ball, right? Baker hasn't been great lately. Like, yeah, the Falcons are getting carved up, but you kind of got to start your studs and not overthink the matchups. That's when you can really start to get a little too cute and make some pretty big lineup mistakes in the fantasy playoffs, which I'm certainly guilty of doing. Again, favorable fantasy defenses. These are the defenses we want to fire up our guys. Dallas Cowboys, Tennessee Titans. Brock Purdy just popped off against them. Detroit Lions have been a sieve. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We just saw Captain Kirk throw for almost 400 yards, which I think he's done against that same team 2 straight years on Thursday Night Football. And then the Washington Commanders. Running back. It's good to be a running back playing against a New York team. The Jets and Giants are the worst against running backs the past 4 weeks. The Cardinals, the Raiders, and the Browns. The Browns are not playing defense at a level they were earlier this year. It typically happens early in the season. Everyone believes in their opportunity. Everyone believes that they have a chance to, like this could be our year, why not us type thing as the year goes on and there's nothing to play for. Just human nature. That motivation is going to dwindle a little bit. And I think that's what's happened to them. I'm not sure if they've received a bunch of injuries on their line or anything like that. I feel like maybe that's a simpleton take, just talking about the human nature of it, but we're all human. Receivers, the worst defenses against receivers lately, the Lions, the Falcons, the Rams, the Cowboys, and the Colts, who really, really need a win to avoid complete disaster. I'm not sure if Sauce Gardner is back healthy yet. When we look at each individual matchup, we'll go through the little injury report. And then the most favorable defenses against tight ends the past 4 weeks. It's not the Bengals anymore. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, then the Bengals, the Commanders, the Steelers, and the Broncos. So with that all being said, we've gone ahead and looked at, hold on just a minute, all those little notes that I take. I did not put together a ton of different stats. So instead, again, this is live. We're going to go through every matchup and just briefly discuss what we think about each fantasy relevant player. Signing in. Thank God for autofilling passwords, because if I did not have that, I already have to reset my password way more than I would like to. So thank goodness that my computer automatically saves some. Okay, let's jump right in, chat. Philly and Washington, 4 p.m. Eastern. Eagles 18th in points per game, 22.9. Commanders really struggling. I guess they did. Did they get a victory against the Giants last week? Did they end up winning that game? Again, I've been kind of out of it a little bit. They have the Commanders as the worst passing defense. You got to think both. Let me put a mouse pad down so my mouse isn't making a bunch of noise in the mic. I would imagine both Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are close to must start. A.J. Brown's got to be a top. Let me move this keyboard. Is that what they're called? A.J. Brown's got to be a top 10 play. I would say Devontae Smith is probably a top 20 play, just considering how bad the Commanders have been against the pass. Saquon hasn't given you the big plays that he had last year, but he's still someone you got to feel pretty good about. Robert, what's good, bro? DJ Moore, Jawan Jennings. I would probably go Jawan Jennings. I'm looking at ECR for week 16 right now. They have A.J. Brown as number 7, and they have Devontae Smith as 20. I said A.J. Brown top 10, Devontae Smith 20. That they agree with me. You guys are going to get a little behind the scenes of how I come up with my green lights, red flags, because I look at each matchup and think of where I would rank players, and then I go see where consensus has them ranked. And if I have them ranked differently than what they have, that's kind of what fuels my process there for green lights, red flags. Dallas Goedert's been really good lately. He's just so touchdown dependent, but he's getting a lot of them. Like point blank period, end of discussion. What does he have on the season? Does it show? Dallas Goedert has 9 receiving touchdowns. I believe coming into this year, he never had more than 6 in any particular season. 73 targets, 54 grabs, only 12 fewer grabs than A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I would probably have Goddard ranked fairly high. ECR has him at 7. And then for the Commanders, looking at the injury report here, it looks like Chris Rodriguez will be good to go. He was a full participant, so I'm not wanting to start Bill. Probably don't want to start Chris Rodriguez either at this point. There was a moment where I felt pretty good about starting him, but now that he's coming back from an injury, Bill looked pretty good last week. It's probably going to be a really gross split where none of the running backs gets even a 40% running back split. I just don't want to touch that. For the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, think you can start him with confidence. He's got to be considered a top 5 play this week. ECR has him as number 2. And then for Marcus Mariota, you can start him, I guess. People have been doing that, but I don't want to do that. That's with all due respect. Now for Green Bay and Chicago, really, really good game. On paper, 10-4, the number 2 seed, that's the Bears. The Chicago Bears, the 2 seed in the NFC. Who would have thunk that? And then the Packers, the 7 seed at 9-4. Obviously, losing Micah Parsons is a pretty big blow. Christian Watson will play this week. I am thinking that we as a community need to, I love Christian Watson, but I think we need to reframe the way we think about him. He was doing really, really well when he came back, I believe, in week 8. And then since week 8, up until he got hurt, he was doing really, really well. But a lot of our perception of him was boosted by what he did when Jaden Reed came back, right? Jaden Reed came back, and then Christian Watson caught 4 of 4 targets against the Bears and scored 2 touchdowns. So he's really cashing in and giving you a lot of production on not a lot of volume, not a ton of opportunity. He is the lead guy in that pass catching room, and he does have the ability to take any touch to the house, which makes him an appealing option. But I think we have to bake in the possibility that he's going to bust. No diddy. We have to bake that into our range of outcomes when we're playing Christian Watson, because he very, very likely could have a 2-game stretch here to end the year where he doesn't pass 5 fantasy points. Like, I think we can't think of Christian Watson as some bulletproof option. He's someone with a high ceiling and a low floor. He's kind of like a poor man's JMO in terms of fantasy. Different players, different body types, different skill sets. They have JMO. To talk about how high JMO's risen, and we'll get to the Lions game here in a minute. He's the number 8 receiver in ECR against Pittsburgh. That's pretty crazy to me. Who are we just talking about? This goes a lot faster when I have my notes. When I'm just kind of freelancing, kind of can go off the rails a little bit. Yeah, they have Christian Watson at wide receiver 35. I'm okay starting him, but I view him as more of a wide receiver 3 flex play than I do the high-end wide receiver 2 value he was giving you. Josh Jacobs, have we seen anything about him playing? And I'm yapping so much I can't even take a sip of my coffee. Cheers. Save our Sonics. It looks like we may be getting a team back in Seattle, by the way. Josh Jacobs. I bet there would be, like, there are so many people who aren't a fan of an NBA team. If we get a team back, I'm gonna make a YouTube channel about everything Seattle Supersonics and just document like their entire existence. Like, who are their players? Who should we look for in the draft? Like, I will go all in on that. Josh Jacobs. What's the latest on our boy Josh Jacobs? This is 11:21 a.m. Central Time on a Saturday. I haven't seen anything on Josh Jacobs. Have y'all? You're from Eastern Washington, Caesar? There's no way. I grew up. I was born in Tacoma. Born in Tacoma, moved to Oklahoma, so I followed my team when they relocated. That's not actually like my reasoning for being in Oklahoma, but they bounced, so I bounced. And isn't it kind of weird how the Thunder win the title, the Mariners have their best season of all time, the Seahawks currently hold the number 1 seed, and now Adam Silver says next year they will decide whether they're going to expand or not. Like, I think the Thunder winning everything kind of woke up everyone up in Seattle. They're like, you know what? Hey, they won their title. Curse is broken. Let's move on. Kind of feels like things are on the up and up. Coming from someone who's not a big Seattle sports fan, I used to cheer for the Mariners a lot. Josh Jacobs, I haven't seen anything on him. Jaden Reed's a player I really like, just from a football fan standpoint. If we didn't have fantasy football and we're just talking about players we like, I really like Jaden Reed. I just don't love him from a fantasy standpoint, just because this Packers team in general doesn't seem like they don't really give. Sorry, this lighting's bugging me. I gotta fix this. This probably looks really weird. They don't really give any receiver a total opportunity to take over. For the Bears, let's see what we got here. Luther Burden and Roma Dunze both out. DeAndre Swift was limited. Let's go ahead and check the latest there. DeAndre Swift. It would be nice if I could look these up and not have to sift through. See, I look up Swift and they're talking about Taylor Swift. He was limited. I guess we'll know here in a little bit. If DeAndre Swift doesn't play, I would have Monangai as like a mid to low end RB2. If DeAndre Swift does play, Swift would be the mid to low end RB2, and Monangai would kind of be like a mid flex to me. This Packers run defense is pretty tough. I would like to see how did they run the ball last time these two teams faced off. Let's check that out. Swift 13 for 63, Monangai 14 for 57. So that feels about right. They're not the smash plays that they might normally be against worse defenses. All right, let's move on. Tampa Bay and Carolina. Really juicy game here, guys. 7-7 both ways. Buccaneers 500, Panthers 500. Cannot believe the Panthers dropped that game against the Saints last week. And right on, Caesar, on the Northwest vibes. I think Mike Evans is a must start, even with Baker Mayfield not playing great right now. Bucky Irving, people were disappointed about the Sean Tucker goal line rush, but Bucky Irving still got he got almost 18 opportunities. I want to say maybe it was 18 opportunities exactly. Let me pull that up. Little Bucky. He just didn't get the touchdown, but he had 19 opportunities. His 3 games since coming back from injury, starting in week 13, 19, 18, 19. He's a good enough player. And in theory, this offense is good enough to where you're not considering benching him. You have him. This is a game where it should be pretty competitive. Tampa Bay is favored by 3. I think you got to roll with Bucky. I would rank the Buccaneers receivers. I would go Mike Evans, Ibuka, and Chris Godwin. I don't really want to start Chris Godwin, and honestly, I don't love Ibuka either. I've had him red lighted 2 weeks in a row, and I think the rest of the community has caught up, and they are not ranking him very highly anymore. They have him down at wide receiver 29 now. So the love on Emeka Ibuka has very quickly dwindled, and I don't blame anyone for feeling that way, especially with Baker not really playing great right now. Origami Harvest, what's good? Need one wide receiver, one flex, one running back. Evans, Waddle, Watson, Higgins, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving. I would go need one of each. If Higgins plays, I'm going T. Higgins. If not, I would go Evans. Actually, I would probably go Evans and then T. And then I would go Bucky Irving. If I had to pick 3, I would go Evans, Bucky, and then T. Higgins if he plays. If not, Chase Brown. London, Ibuka, and Swift. London and Ibuka for me, I think. Origami, you got it. All right. Anything else? Oh, I haven't talked about the Panthers yet. Rico Dowdle, they kind of quieted any concerns about Chuba Hubbard taking over and being the guy. They can go ahead and start him. Tet was a full participant on Friday, so you're not worried about him. You're firing him up. Look, I like Jalen Coker. I don't think there's too many people out there trying to start him. I'm not starting him just yet. When I say just yet, I mean at all. And then Chuba, hopefully he gets more work next year. I don't know where Rico's going to go. I have Chuba in a ton of dynasty leagues and was really counting on him this year and did not pan out very well for me. Buffalo and Cleveland. I am not wanting to start any pass catchers in this game, particularly because this kind of seems like one of those games where the Bills get up by a lot and then don't have to pass the ball very much. Obviously, Josh Allen is, he's a monster. He needs to be started every single week. I'm not teaching you anything when I say that. But as far as their pass catchers go, Dalton Kincaid isn't really on the field enough to justify starting him lately. I'm trying to pull up his snap counts the past couple of weeks. They were pretty even with Dawson Knox. If I'm going weeks 14 and 15 for the Bills, tight ends, Dawson Knox is running 16 routes a game. Kincaid's running 18. Knox is getting 6 targets. Kincaid's getting 5. I think that you can still start Dalton Kincaid even off 5 targets a game, but I think I just want to go elsewhere. He still seems like he's a little banged up now. Maybe he kind of rounds back up into form. Over the past 2 weeks, he is averaging 10 PPR points, so he's not like killing you if you're starting him. But I don't know. I think that you could probably find better luck elsewhere. For Khalil Shakir, I would imagine he's ranked somewhere in the 30s. ECR has him at 39. I would probably have him higher than that. 39 seems really low. And I haven't green lighted Khalil Shakir much this year at all. But since we're doing this live and you guys are kind of getting a peek behind the curtain, I think I'm going to green light Khalil Shakir at wide receiver 39. It doesn't mean I want to start him, but they have him as a wide receiver 4, a high-end wide receiver 4. I think he can finish as a mid-range wide receiver 3. So we'll look into those numbers here in a little bit for that video. I got to have a busy little morning and afternoon. I have not been on my stuff lately. I'm trying to just be like y'all, end of the season, just kick my feet up, enjoy some football, stress about my matchups. It is my first year doing fantasy content, so there are some things I didn't anticipate that I will know for next year. All right, let's go. One of the biggest questions from this game, I think, is can we trust Quinshon Judkins? I would imagine many of you have that dilemma, that problem. Vegas certainly thinks you can, and I think I agree. They have Quinshon Judkins rush yards at 70.5. They have him at 0.6 rushing touchdowns. They feel pretty good about him. He's getting the work. He just has been hit behind the line of scrimmage a ton. I believe the last 2 weeks it's something like 38 carries for 47 yards, something gross like that. But the Bills have been very beatable on the ground. I want to make sure I'm not misquoting what I said earlier about fantasy points against, but I believe the Bills have been one of the worst teams against running backs all season. They are bottom 5 against running backs all season. The past 4 weeks, they're bottom 10. Last 2 weeks, they're also bottom 5. I do think you can go ahead and start Judkins here, but let's frame him as a running back 2, not the low-end RB1 that we felt like we had at one point earlier this season, which, don't get me wrong, he can still get there. He's still a really good player. It's just when you're playing the Browns now, like a lot of Shador's passes are at or behind the line of scrimmage, so defenses can kind of crowd the line a little bit. Shador has beat them on a few deep balls, but he hasn't been like slicing and dicing defenses to really make them, cover the whole field and be completely honest. So let me check this light real quick. Let me plug in this little light. Make sure it doesn't die. Just shine bright like a diamond. Where the heck is this little charging cord? Here we go. I chose to be happy. Here we go. Bang. As far as the Browns pass catchers, I don't know if you want to, other than Harold Fannin. Harold Fannon's got to be, I bumped that light. It's going to give me major OCD. Harold Fannon's got to be a top 6 play. What do we think? Top 6? Let's see. Maybe green light. If he's ranked lower than 6. Ooh, he's 5. Okay, so ECR agrees with me there. Other than that, I'm not starting Jerry Jeudy. I'm not starting Cedric Tillman, obviously. I think that's all we need to talk about there with that game. Chargers at the Cowboys. Now, the Chargers defense has been really good lately, particularly for fantasy purposes, but in real life as well. I mean, they're kind of on a little bit of a heater. They've won 3 straight games, just like the Cowboys did. They beat the Eagles and Chiefs in back-to-back weeks by a combined 6 points. Their defense has held each of their last 3 opponents to under 20 points. So their defense is rolling a little bit. It's not going to deter me from starting Javonte Williams. I would probably have Williams like in the 14 to 16 range. They have him at 10. I'm going to red flag Javonte at RB10. So let me write down that so I can what the heck? RB Javonte Williams, RB10. I kind of have him as a high-end RB2 this week, not a low-end RB1. Again, still starting him. When I'm green lighting or red flag and so on, it just means I like him more or less. The consensus, that does not mean start sit. What do we think about George Pickens? Are we tripping about him? Kind of has been letting us down lately. CeeDee Lamb, we're going to go ahead and fire him up no matter what. They have Pickens ranked at 11, CeeDee Lamb ranked at 5. And then tight end, I've been red flagging Jake Ferguson almost all season, and it seems that everyone else is kind of caught up now. He's being ranked as tight end 16. Seems like they've lost a good bit of their faith there, and I have as well. Speaking of losing faith, the Chargers' whole entire offense for fantasy purposes has been really gross. Justin Herbert hasn't been very good from a fantasy perspective. Omarion Hampton coming back has been like, he's looked okay. But the split has been kind of even with Kamani Vidal, which we don't love. And then the receivers, none of them have really been producing too much lately as well. I think they're all ranking outside the top 30 recently. They have Lab McConkey at wide receiver 24 this week. I think I can get with that. The Cowboys, oh, goodness gracious. The Cowboys defense being what it is, I think he's a good candidate to be a green light this week. Let's look at some of these receivers, see who we like in these spots. Jalen Waddle against Cincinnati is receiver 19. Justin Jefferson is receiver 18. We feel good about him at all. Sutton 15. I like Sutton. Jawan Jennings is 14. Yeah, there's a lot of guys I like here. I think I'm going to red flag George Pickens too. Just at wide receiver 11. I think he can still have a good game, but he hasn't been good enough lately for me to feel confident firing him up as a wide receiver 1. And if you've been here for a while, you know I've been much better on my red lights than I have my green flags. Green lights? I've been better on my red flags than I have my green lights. Arondé Gadsden falls in that category too. He has not been putting up much good numbers this year, at least the second half of the season. He was super efficient and on a roll there his first handful of games. Let's go to the Jets at the Saints. There are still so many games to get through. Jets, I'm not really wanting to start anyone. Breece Hall would be the only guy, maybe A.D. Mitchell in a deep league or John Mechie. They have A.D. Mitchell at wide receiver 34, John Mechie at wide receiver. Where's John Mechie? Donde está Señor Mechie? They have John Mechie at wide receiver 48. Again, Breece Hall, I believe he'd be around 20. Yeah, they have him at running back 19. You can miss me with most of those guys. And then for the Saints, the big question here is, are we going to use either of their running backs? The Jets defense has been pretty rough. We just talked about them being one of the worst. They're one of the worst 2 defenses against running backs the past 4 weeks. So from a matchup standpoint, that seems pretty enticing. However, I'm not super excited about Audric Estime, but I think he can fall into the end zone for you. I don't know how much of a ceiling he has. The Saints are favored in this game by 6.5, a pretty significant spread. So there have been worse flex options throughout the season. I would only be starting Tyler Bidet if you're looking at your other options and you're just like, yeah, these other guys aren't it. Like if you're looking at Bidet or Tyjae Spears, who I love in real life, but hasn't been great in fantasy this year, I would rather go Bidet. Would I rather go Bidet or Breece Hall? I would probably want to wager on the more talented player who the Jets don't really have anyone else to get the ball to. The Saints at least have Chris Olave and Jawan Johnson. The Jets have Breece Hall and A.D. Mitchell, I guess. Like if you want to throw John Mechie in there as a guy, I don't think he's as good as Olave or Jawan Johnson. Vikings at the Giants. Can 9 string together a third consecutive strong game here? We will find that out. Justin Jefferson, career low 4.7 receptions per game and a career low 59.4 receiving yards per game so far this year. JJ McCarthy, back-to-back, going for his third straight wins. Jackson Dart leads all rookies with 20 total touchdowns. Let's see. Justin Jefferson's projections, 4.5 catches, 64 yards, maybe half a touchdown. They have him ranked as I believe, a top 15 guy. They have him at 18. Excuse me. They have him at 18. So that's about where I would have him. Jordan Addison, I know the Giants have been rough. I don't really want to start Jordan Addison. He is being ranked as wide receiver 36, so a low end wide receiver 3. I think that's appropriate. As far as the running backs, don't think I want to start either Aaron Jones or Jordan Mason. They've both looked solid the past few weeks. Jordan Mason, I think, has more touchdown upside, probably. I think they view him as more of like a bruising power back, but I don't want to start either of them. For the Giants, Jackson Dart still running, not as much as he was pre-injury. They have him as quarterback 14 on the week, and I don't hate that. I don't love Jackson Dart this week, especially as they try to be more conservative with him. They're not playing for anything. They don't want to go with this coaching search with a injured quarterback. We just saw Pat Mahomes go down, Micah Parsons. Obviously, a lot of this is unpreventable, but I do think the Giants are playing it more conservative with Jackson Dart. Wan'Dale Robinson has been a really awesome story. They do have him ranked outside the top 20 this week, and that's where I might step in and green light him, especially against a tough. What do I like more? Do I like Khalil Shakir, a wide receiver 39, or Wan'Dale Robinson at wide receiver 24? I think I like Wan'Dale more at 24 than I do Shakir at 39. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of Shakir and get Juan Diddy in there. Tyrone Tracy, I think we can go ahead and fire him up. He's been awesome in 3 of 4 weeks. I believe they've played 4 games since Scatterboo went down. Maybe it's more than that. I know they had a bye late, I think week 14. Tyrone Tracy, I think he's a solid top 20 play, even against a tough defense. You have to think he's earned the right to play more snaps than Tracy or than Devin Singletary at this point. So I like Tyrone Tracy here. Chiefs and Titans. One thing I'm concerned about with the Chiefs defense, which is maybe something that makes me more confident in starting Tony Pollard, is the fact that like they're not playing for anything anymore. Like, what version of this Chiefs team are we going to get? Are we going to get the version that is like pretty good at defense, or are we going to get a version that's a little like the knob, the intensity dial has been turned back a tiny bit? I think I'm going to green light Tony Pollard at running back 29. Like, he's had 100 plus rushing yards in back-to-back weeks. Don't know how much the Chiefs are playing for, or what are they playing for other than pride. They don't have their leader there. Chris Jones has been known to take a bunch of plays off. Like, what incentive does he have to keep working? Are they banged up anywhere else? Oh my goodness. Leo Chanel is out with a shoulder injury. Trent McDuffie is out with a knee injury. Derek Noddy is out with an illness. Any more defensive players? Corner Nazeeh Johnson is out, even though he was a full participant on Friday. Yeah, I think I feel pretty good about that Tony Pollard call, by the way. I think I am going to greenlight him. For the Chiefs pass catchers, I think Travis Kelce is still startable with Gardner Minshew. Doesn't have a great arm. I think it's going to be a lot of check down stuff. Minshew is one of the better backups, so he can like conduct a functional looking offense. For the Chiefs running backs, I think I would still prefer Kareem Hunt, but let me look at their snap counts recently. In week 15, Kareem Hunt ran 6 rushes and 29 snaps. Pacheco, 10 rushes and 27 snaps. Week 14, was Pacheco out? No. Kareem Hunt, more snaps, more rush attempts. I think the Chiefs still should be able to score against this Titans team. This Titans team is really awful. I'm still okay starting Kareem Hunt as like a low end running back 2, high end running back 3. I think ECR has him way below that. They have him at running back 37. I think I like Pollard at 29 more than I like Hunt at 37. So we'll stick there. No Rashee Rice. Xavier Worthy becomes a interesting desperation flex, whereas before I would want no part of starting him. I still probably don't. Kansas City's favored by only 3 here. I think this one could get kind of weird pretty fast. Bengals and the Dolphins. I'm in a really weird spot. I keep going back and forth between Joe Burrow and Drake May. I did that last week and ended up going with Joe Burrow and was disappointed with the result, but he threw the ball 39 times. He's thrown the ball 35 plus times every start so far he's had since coming back from injury. If T. Higgins plays, I feel a lot better about Joe Burrow. And I'm still not afraid to start Joe Burrow this week. Let's see what T. Higgins is at. Excuse the sniffles. It's that time of year. Bengals get great news on. That doesn't tell me anything. What's the latest on Mr. Higgins? I haven't seen anything. It shouldn't be this hard to find out this information, but I would have T. Higgins as a top 20 play if he plays. Jamar Chase, you're auto starting him. Chase Brown, same thing. Joe Burrow, I know he burned you last week, but this team does want to pass the ball in neutral downs, neutral scores, trailing ahead, whatever. They love passing the ball. Mike Gesicki kind of want to stay away from. And then for the Dolphins, I'm not going to tell you anything new here. You're starting Devon Achane. You're starting Jalen Waddle. Even though it has been a little rougher recently, I still want to start Mr. Waddle. How many more games we got? We just got a handful. We have the Falcons and the Cardinals next. Drake London makes his return, which you got to start him if he comes back. They have nothing to play for. They were holding him out of practice. So the fact that he's 100% back in practice, it's got to tell you that he's back to full speed, good to go. I know they had him as limited in practice, but they weren't letting him practice, period, during the injury. So I think you got to feel pretty good about starting him there. What's the latest on Marvin Harrison Jr.? He's questionable. He would ding Michael Wilson's value pretty significantly if he played. I think they're both startable. I think I would prefer Harrison if he plays, which sounds weird considering Michael Wilson has been tearing it up the past few weeks. For the running backs, I think you can get away with starting Michael Carter. I picked him up and I'm really tempted to start him, but I don't think I can put him above some of the other options I have on that team. Trey McBride is a freaking monster. Bijan Robinson, freaking monster. And then Jacoby Brissett. I think you can start him with confidence too. He's got to be a top 5 guy, top 8 guy this week. They have him at 9. I am firing up. That's a green light right there for me. Is Jacoby Brissett at QB 9? That feels like free money right there. Has he even finished below? Has Jacoby Brissett finished that low all year when he's started? I think he's been better than QB 9 every single week he's played. That's what it feels like. Let's check it out. Position rank. Okay, we're gonna go from week 9 on. Week 9 was the Cow. No, let's go week 7 on. That's the Packers game. Nope, week 6 on. The first game he started against the Colts. From week 7 on, here are his weekly finishes. QB 7, QB 12, QB 10, QB 13, QB 4, QB 7, QB 9, and then back-to-back weeks as the QB 12. So not as good as I felt like he was being, but I'm still going to take Jacoby Brissett at that QB 9 price. I think he's dropping back 40 plus times every single game. basically been a guarantee to throw for 250, multiple touchdowns in every game but one, 20 plus rushing yards in 5 of those games. Yeah, I think you can go ahead and fire up Jacoby Brissett in the fantasy semis, which seems gross, but sometimes you got to go with a gut check and just be bold and let it fly. Jacksonville and Denver, even though it is a tough matchup, I am starting Travis Etienne and Brian Thomas Jr. Etienne's got to be a top 10 play this week, despite the tough matchup. They have him at 8. I would imagine BTJ is around 25 for wide receivers. They have him at 27. If Pat Surtain covers him a lot of the game, that would be a little concerning. It's hard to tell exactly what they'll do there. I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see. It would be nice if it was Riley Moss, who has been targeted the second most of any player in the NFL this season and has allowed the third most yards as a result per Next Gen Stats. Trevor Lawrence on a bit of a heater. Bo Nix on a bit of a heater as well. I am fading RJ Harvey a little bit this week. The Jaguars have not allowed a 75-yard rusher all season. Thankfully, excuse me, for RJ Harvey, he does rely a lot on the passing game, and he's been pretty touchdown dependent, but he's been scoring a lot of touchdowns. So you can start RJ Harvey. I'm just not super excited to. Cortland Sutton is the guy I want in this offense. He's been great the past handful of weeks. He is being ranked appropriately as such, wide receiver 15 this week. Jacoby Myers, totally fine starting him. In most cases, just think we have to dial down the optimism a tad bit, considering this is a tough defense. Tyler Sperry said Loveland or Schultz, you're up 49. You must have had Puka. Texans play the Raiders and Bears play the Packers. I would probably go with Loveland. I think the Bears are going to want to / have to pass a little more than the Texans against the Raiders. I just think there's probably going to be more opportunities for Loveland than there will be for Schultz. You had Kyron and Stafford. Hey, that's a good place to be as well. Theo, what's good? Okay, we just got 4 more games left, chat. Appreciate you dealing with the lack of preparedness today. Didn't have all my stats dialed up. You're kind of just getting a raw peek behind the curtain how I'm just looking at these for the first time. It's not the boiled down, compact, tight version that I would prefer to give you, but it is what it is. Steelers Lions, one of the highest projected scoring games on the slate. I think we said this might have been the highest. JMO, wide receiver 8 in rankings. Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 3. Jahmyr Gibbs got to be close to running back 1. He's ranked as running back 2. Goff got to be a top 10 play. He's number 8 in ECR. DK Metcalf, can we go ahead and start him? I think so. This Lions defense has been pretty weak against the pass. There is a reality that I think exists where, although the Lions have been awful, they get together and say, hey, let's make anyone other than DK Metcalf beat us. I do like Kenneth Gainwell. I might red flag, Jalen Warren again. ECR has Gainwell at 27 and Jalen Warren at 28. That split is way closer to 50-50 now. And Gainwell is getting enough opportunities. I think Kenneth Gainwell has had a little stretch where he's getting 7-8 targets per game consistently. Theo and Tyler, I got you guys questions in just a sec. Here are Kenneth Gainwell's opportunities since week 11. 17 against the Bengals, 16 against the Bears, 8 against the Bills, then 11 against the Ravens, and then 20 against the Dolphins, second highest. He has been really good in PPR. Again, that same stretch, running back 5, running back 9, running back 43, running back 12, running back 9. Kenneth Gainwell has been a running back 1, a top 12 play in 4 of the past 5 weeks. The targets during that time span, 8 targets, 6 targets, 3 targets, 7 targets, 7 targets. Now I have to ask myself for my green lights, who do I like more? Do I like Pollard at 29 or do I like Gainwell at 27? That's a tough one. Let me write that down so I can figure that out after I get off this live. RB27. Start 3, Evans, Swift, Carter, and Tracy. I would go Mike Evans is the no-brainer for me. DeAndre Swift, if he's a full go, I would start him as well. Carter and Tracy. I would probably go Evans, Tracy, and maybe Evans, Tracy, and Carter just playing it safe with the Swift injury. But if they say Swift, like anything along the language of like no limitations, he's a full go, I would be starting Swift. I got a shave. I got a shave. It looks like this is kind of curling out to a little like May-wee mustache. Any news on Watson, or am I stuck with Devontae Smith? I think Watson's playing. Earlier I spoke a little bit about Christian Watson. We need to reframe the way we think of him and be okay with him having a few like bust games because he's doing it on insane efficiency. He's not getting a ton of volume. And so when you're not getting a ton of volume, you have to cash in on the looks you're getting, which he has done, right? Like last time against the Bears, he only had 4 targets, but he caught all 4 of them, and 2 of them went into the end zone. So he would play Reed. Yeah, Jaden Reed, he would be an interesting play if Watson's out. It's just, I think with all Green Bay Packers, when you start them, at least from their receivers, when you start, yeah, you got it, Theo. Appreciate you, man. When you start any Packers receiver, you kind of got to be prepared for somewhat of a letdown because no Packers receiver the past, 5 years has just been consistently peppered with targets like we're used to seeing happen for a lot of other teams. 3 games left. Raiders at Texans. Really gross projected score here. They have the Texans as 14.5 point favorites, which is pretty crazy. Texans defense, if you have them, hopefully this is a spot where they can get a defensive touchdown. Nico's been an absolute monster. I am worried about him kind of being taken out of the game with it being a blowout, but you're still starting him. Dalton Schultz answered a question about him earlier. You can still start him. I kind of worry about this game being a blowout early. I don't know if I want to roll with Ashton Genty. I know he's been getting a ton of opportunities, but they had 75 yards of offense last week against the Eagles. It's going to be hard for them to be much worse. Like there's no way, knock on wood, they're any worse than they were last week, but this is the Texans. Here are his opportunities the past 2 weeks, 14, 15. The weeks before that, he had 25 and 23. So do we think he's going to get closer to the opportunities he had prior to the past couple of weeks? I would hope so. But if he's not getting 15 carries, here are his finishes every week when he's gotten 15 carries. 24 against the Patriots, 42 against the Commanders, number 1 against the Bears, number 12 against the Titans, 14 against the Broncos, 4 against the Browns, 24 against the Chargers. So if he's getting 15 rushes, he's finishing as RB2, like at the worst. But these past 2 weeks when he's getting 10 and 9 rushes and his targets are 4 and 6 instead of 3 straight games with 8 targets, it's just tough for me to trust. So I really don't want to roll with any Raiders. They are god-awful. Pete Carroll coaching for his job. I mean, obviously when he took over this roster, like he knew it was a rebuild, but I didn't expect them to be this bad. I thought they'd win 6 games, something like that. Theo's benching Genty, and I cannot blame him there one bit. For the Texans, I think we just talked about them. The only thing to consider here is the running back situation. If Woody Marks is playing, you're going to go ahead and start him. If he's not, Jahar Jordan becomes interesting. But did I see something about Nick Chubb coming back? Nick Chubb, it was a full participant, so pump the brakes on the Jahar Jordan hype train there. Woody Marks, Woody's load. I'm not seeing much on Woody, good or bad. I would assume he's probably playing. All right, 2 more games. Can I get this done in less than an hour? It doesn't look like I will. First YouTube live though, pretty good. I do enjoy. I rock with my people on TikTok, but I feel like on there, excuse my language here, I feel like a start sit slut. Like they're just like this guy, that guy, that guy, which I like answering those questions, but there's so much and there's so little actual like personal connection. There is some, like there are some people who pop up on my TikTok stuff that I recognize from different lives, and I'm like, hey, I appreciate you. You're always popping in here. Let's get it. But sometimes it's like I feel like I'm AI. So I do like the more personal connections, but I get it. I'm a fantasy football content creator. Y'all got questions? I'm trying to answer them as well. Patriots Ravens Sunday Night Football. Are we going to fire up Drake May? Well, the experts as a whole are. They have him ranked as quarterback 3 this week. I'm just a little iffy on Drake May at QB3. He's been good all year. He hasn't finished inside the top 10 since week 8. He hasn't thrown more than 2 touchdown passes in a game since week 9. I like Drake May, but I think I like Joe Burrow more than Drake May this week. I might red light Drake May. And that's coming from someone who loves him some Drake May. But Ravens are playing better defense recently. Again, I'll say it again. Drake May hasn't finished inside the top 10 since week 8. He did have like 20 points in the first quarter last week, but I don't think Drake May fading him at QB3. I don't think that's a bad call. I think he could wind up finishing anywhere inside the top 10, including the top 3, but I don't know. I'm not quite as high on him as consensus. So for green light so far, we have Jacoby Brissett, QB9, Tony Pollard or Kenneth Gainwell in the late 20s, and then Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver 24. For red flags, we got Drake May at quarterback 3, Javonte at running back 10, and George Pickens at wide receiver 11. Let's go ahead and Travion Henderson. He is a must start at this point. Hope you don't disagree. Stephon Diggs was a guy I thought we'd be able to get more usage out of, but this passing game has been pretty tough to predict because there's been when Matt Collins had his first really good game, I thought, okay, he'll do this once or twice. I think Matt Collins has done that like 3 times now where he's been the leading receiver. Hunter Henry is a guy you can start. Just don't feel great about him in most weeks. They have him as tight end 14, which I think is about right. Again, I don't want to start a tight end 2, but if worse comes to worse, I can. Derrick Henry, I'm firing him up, obviously. Zay Flowers, firing him up. I feel like he might be getting fixed to not be replaced, but they got to figure to draft like a true number 1 receiver soon, right? Or are they just never going to do that? Is Lamar ever going to have a typical number 1 receiver? I don't know. I never usually drink coffee past noon, but I've been so busy talking and not busy sipping that I have no choice as it just passed 12 o'clock, 12:03 here in good old Oklahoma. Lamar Jackson, I'm firing him up. Crossing my fingers. He has looked better the past few weeks. Are we finally stopped ranking him inside the top 5? He is at QB5 this week, so we have stopped him as a top 3 option, I guess. Would I start Travion over Bucky or Chase Brown? It's really tough. So tough when we get to these. That's the toughest part about fantasy as you hear the tornado sirens. The toughest part about fantasy decisions is choosing between good options. I can choose between bad options. I would go Saints defense. I can choose between bad options because if one of them doesn't do well, then like they're all bad to begin with. But if I'm choosing between good options, like C-Dub, you're going against Travion or Bucky or Chase Brown, like I feel a lot of pressure to get that right. Not a lot of pressure to answer your question, but as a fantasy player, I feel a lot of pressure to get that who's who correct. I would have a really hard time sitting Travion. And that I have a pretty big appetite for risk in fantasy. That's why I have so much Christian Watson. That's why I have so much Jameson Williams. That's why earlier on in the season, whenever I would get Tyreek Hill start sit questions, I'm saying if I have Tyreek Hill, I'm always starting him because he has matchup winning upside. I feel the same way about Travion Henderson. I feel the same way about Bucky Irving too, but Travion I think is at this point in Bucky's recovery, I think Travion is a better player right now. If Bucky had never gotten hurt, I'd probably say Bucky. And don't get me wrong, it's really, really hard to sit Bucky or Chase Brown. That's a really, really good question, dude. I think you got to go with your gut there. I would roll the dice with Travion, but I'm rolling the dice understanding that is a risky play. But it's going to feel risky because you're sitting two of those studs. There's no way you can fit all those guys into your lineup. For this 49ers, Jawan Johnson, we're firing him up. He's been freaking awesome the last month or so. He's like almost guarantee to have 5+ catches, 60+ yards, and a touchdown. That's what it feels like with him. I actually want to look up. I keep calling him Jawan Johnson. I mean Jawan Jennings. Let's look at his stats here. He really has been freaking amazing. I think I might have broken a personal record for how many times I can say frickin' in a 5-minute span. As my stuff loads, I'm trying to give y'all the skinny on Jawan Jennings. Where are we at? All right. It's really cool when you can find guys who like aren't winning you matchups every week, but like are constantly giving you 10+ points. Here's Jawan Jennings over the past handful of weeks. 14 points, 17 points, 9.5, 15, 14, 19. Like that's fantasy gold, man. Like a good wide receiver 2 is so underrated. Here are his finishes during those weeks. 26, 17, 35, boo. 19, 19, 12. Like if I have a guy I can plug into my lineup and he's finishing his running or receiver 15 to 20 every single week, like sign me up for that. That's why it felt so good, even though I was worried. Chris Godwin, when he scored 12 points, I was like, shoot, like I'll take a 12 spot going into the weekend. The only thing about this one is I get the chills saying this. I don't know if you can see the goosebumps or not. You are going to be relying on Jawan Jennings to punch your ticket to the fantasy championship on Monday Night Football. This is the game. This Monday night game. Either you or your opponent are going to have a player or two. This is going to be it. Can George Kittle send you to the fantasy championship? Can Jonathan Taylor send you to the fantasy championship? Are we going to start the Colts pass catchers? The 49ers have been better against the pass recently. One of the better teams in the league, actually. That might have to do with who they've been playing. Their last 4 games are against the Titans, Browns, and the Panthers. So keep that in mind. However, Phillip Rivers is probably worse than all the quarterbacks on those teams I just mentioned. So I'm not excited to start any Colts pass catcher. I honestly would try to avoid it if I could. With my season on the line, I don't really want to be stressing out on Monday night. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do want to stress out on Monday night. I'm kind of a sicko like that. Like I just want to feel something and have my season hanging in the balance. And I'm staying up way too late past my bedtime pacing. Like, can Kittle get 2 more catches for 35 yards? Like, I love that stuff. I just don't want to start any of those pass catchers. And that's the last game. That's all we got, chat. I'll answer a few of y'all's questions. I appreciate y'all being in here. I got to find a way to start streaming to other services such as Twitch. But I think YouTube's a place I want to keep growing a little bit. Appreciate everyone who's already subbed to the channel. We're close to 1,000. Not sure if we're going to get there by the time the end of the season gets here, but if y'all just want to hang out for a bit, I can get working on the green lights, red flags. And if you have any start sit questions or just any general football, life, fantasy questions, I can just kind of sit here and BS and work on this if y'all have any questions. Is Michael Wilson the serviceable wide receiver 2 with Marv back? I think he is. Maybe not wide receiver 2. I would say closer to wide receiver 3, Sea-Waj. Okay, so Brissett QB9, I actually like that. Pollard running back 29, I'm going to go with that. I like the narrative there of the Chiefs kind of giving up a little bit. Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver 24. That's one I might. I think I'm going to look around a little bit. I want to say Drake London at wide receiver 21, but that seems kind of cheap and cheeky. I think that's going to go up as more people update their rankings because people weren't sure if he was playing or not. Jacoby at wide receiver 23 is interesting. Brian Thomas at wide receiver 27. Ladd McConkey at wide receiver 25. That's one I actually kind of like. Do I like who? This becomes who do I think is going to have a better day? Do I think it's going to be Ladd or Wan'Dale? Let's look at the highest scoring environments. That's what I'm gonna base this off of. Let's go. How many of y'all are in the fantasy semis? Because I know there's some of you, maybe not in this chat right now at this very moment, but some of you might be here just because you're a sicko and you love fantasy football, not because you're actually playing for it. If that's any of you, salute to you. And I would be lying if I said that this was a good year for me in fantasy. I am not having a good year, but I'm in so many leagues that I am in the fantasy semis in a few leagues. Hoping, praying, wishing I can punch my ticket to the good old fantasy championship. Would be glorious. What was I looking up? I was looking at, what was I even talking about? I had started typing something into a web browser, like a search bar, and never ended up figuring out what I was going to do. Oh, I was looking at the week 16 implied totals. That's what I was doing. To choose between Wan'Dale Robinson or Ladd McConkey. Let's go implied total. Lions 29, Bills 26, Cowboys 26, Chargers 23.5. And I'm comparing the Chargers and the Giants. They have the Giants at 20.5. Total 43.5, and the total for this game is 49.5. All right, I'm going to green light Ladd McConkey at wide receiver 25 instead of Wan'Dale at wide receiver 24. Ladd. Who y'all got in the college games today? Are y'all more NFL guys? I am very excited for that Packers Bears game. Kind of scared me. All right, the last thing I got to do is pick green lights and red flags for tight ends. Here's what expert consensus rankings ECR says for tight ends this week. Hold up. Trey McBride, George Kittle, Kyle Pitts at 3. I like Kyle Pitts, but at 3? Brock Bowers at 4. Trey McBride did just tear up the Texans, but Jacoby Brissett is infinitely better than Geno Smith this year. Dalton Schultz, 9. I'm going to red flag. I think I'm going to red flag Dalton Schultz at 9. Sea-Waj, thanks, man. I've kind of fallen off late in the season. Haven't really been living right. Toward the holidays, end of the year, I kind of always fall back into old habits and justify it by saying, when New Year's starts, I'll fix it and we'll just go clean slate from there. So kind of like a real human element here. I feel like I have not been producing great content recently. But next year, if I'm lucky enough to be doing this again, I'll try to change that and be on 10s from week 1 all the way through the end. But I appreciate you being here, man, for real. Who do I want to are we too low on Jake Ferguson at tight end 16 now? Because I have been red flagging him. Are we too low now? Like, has the hate gone too far the other way? Tight end 16 is pretty dang low. Sea-Watch, I'm glad, bro. I just didn't do the prep work this week to put it together like I usually do. And with the 2 games on Saturday now, I'm feeling a little bit of pressure to make sure I get everything put out in a timely manner. But I just fell behind the 8 ball a little bit. It was a little too late. The people who are in here, did you guys find me on YouTube or did you find me on TikTok and came over here from TikTok? Genuinely curious because I have like 30K followers, on TikTok, almost 1,000 on YouTube. I know a lot of that came from TikTok, but I'm curious, are any of you in here right now, the 4 of you who are still, did any of y'all find my stuff on YouTube? That would be interesting for me to see as I open up. We're going to make these graphics right here. And to the Substack. Sea-Watch is a real one. I'm glad you enjoy the Substack. I'm trying to. That's the thing, man. As I get started off with just like the backfield, the breakdown videos and stuff, and then I was like, okay, let me see if I can start doing this, and let me see if I can start doing that, and let me start doing XYZ. So I'm still so new at this. I'm trying out a lot of different stuff, and just seeing what sticks, what works, what doesn't. And then this off season, I'll try to sit down and kind of get some time off and brainstorm what type of time do we want to be on entering 2026. So appreciate y'all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and bounce so I can focus all my attention to getting green lights and red flags. If you want a little peek behind the curtain, let me see. I think it's my unplug my camera actually if I do that, so I can't do that. I was going to show you guys my screen when I'm making these graphics on, but appreciate y'all. Hopefully y'all go get a dub this week. Lots of good football today, tomorrow, and then Monday night to maybe push you over the edge to the fantasy championship. So good luck. Hopefully y'all get there. And I'll catch y'all soon. I'll be going live on TikTok tomorrow morning from 10 to noon. If I can figure out a way to do that here and TikTok at the same time, and Twitch, which I hear is the best place to stream for creators, I'll post something on my story or something like that. But yeah, that's all I got. So appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good rest of your Saturday, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Deuces.